The circuit breaker, one of the most important patterns in backend and system design. Most people think it's just retries. It's the opposite. Your checkout is down. Your code didn't change. The payment provider just got slow. Every request now sits there waiting 30 seconds for a timeout, and your workers are all stuck holding those calls. One slow dependency took the whole site.
So what is this actually about? The subject is failure isolation, keeping one broken part of your system from taking the rest of it down with it. The area covers timeouts, deciding upfront how long you are willing to wait, retries and back off, trying again but spaced out, bulkheads and fallbacks, containing the damage and degrading on purpose, and the circuit breaker, which is today. It is not load balancing, it is not auto-scaling, it is not rate limiting. Adding more machines does not help you here, because every one of them would sit and wait the same 30 seconds. This bites anywhere your code calls something you do not control: a payment provider, a search service another team owns, any model or API sitting behind somebody else's network.
Here is the confusion worth killing first. Isn't this just retrying? No. Think about the breaker panel in your house. A toaster shorts out. The breaker does not go and try the toaster again harder. It cuts the power to that one circuit, instantly and on purpose, so the wiring inside your walls does not overheat, and every other room keeps its lights. Retrying is walking back to the toaster and pressing the lever again and again. The short has not moved. The breaker is the thing that stops you from doing that until somebody has actually looked at it. One of them tries harder. The other one stops trying.
Here is the code almost every service actually has: a function that charges a card. If it times out, try again, up to 3 times. Now look at what that costs. The timeout is 30 seconds, and it is 30 seconds per attempt. So one checkout against a provider that has gone slow can hold one of your workers for 1.5 minutes doing absolutely nothing. And for that whole 1.5 minutes, that worker cannot serve anybody else. Nothing on this screen is wrong on its own. The timeout is sensible. The retry is sensible. Together, they are the outage.
Let's do the arithmetic, because it is brutal. 30 seconds per attempt, 3 attempts, 90 seconds to fail one checkout. Say you have 100 workers. 100 workers, divided by 90 seconds each, is about 1 request a second. When the provider was healthy and answered in 1/10 of a second, those same 100 workers finished around 1,000 a second. So a dependency that got slow, not down, just slow, cut your checkout throughput by a factor of roughly 1,000. And while you did that, you sent the provider 3 times its normal traffic.
This is the part almost everybody gets backwards. The retry is not the cure here. It is the accelerant. Every extra attempt takes a worker that could have served a healthy request and spends it on a call you already have very good reason to believe will fail. And it lands more load on the single machine in the whole system that is least able to take it. Worse, every caller retries at the same moment, so all of that extra traffic arrives together. That is how a slow service becomes a dead service, and how a dead service becomes a dead checkout page.
So here is the pattern. Instead of asking the provider every single time, you keep a small piece of memory about how those calls have been going, and you let that memory decide whether the next call is even worth making. That is all a circuit breaker is. 3 states. Closed means the circuit is complete and calls flow through. That is the normal, healthy state. And yes, closed is the good one, exactly like the switch in your wall. Open means the circuit is broken on purpose, and calls do not go out at all. Half open means we are willing to let exactly 1 call through to find out whether things got better. 2 numbers configure the whole thing: how many failures in a row before we stop, and how long we stay stopped.
Now look at how those 3 states hand off to each other, because this is the entire machine. You start closed. Every failure adds 1 to the counter. Every success resets it back to 0, which matters. It has to be failures in a row, not 5 failures scattered across an afternoon. When the counter reaches the limit, you flip to open, and you write down the time. While you are open, calls do not go out. They fail instantly, in microseconds, without touching the network at all. When the reset timer runs out, you move to half open, and you let exactly 1 call through. If that 1 call succeeds, you go back to closed and clear the counter. If it fails, you go straight back to open, and the timer starts again. Here is the gate itself. Every call goes through this one method. First it asks, are we open? If we are, and the reset timer has not run out yet, we raise straight away. No connection, no 30-second wait, about 3 microseconds instead. If the timer has run out, we move to half open, and this call becomes the probe. Then we run the real function. If it throws, we record a failure and re-raise it, because the caller still needs to know it failed. If it returns, we record a success and hand the result back. That is the whole gate, one if statement in front of your real call.
And these are the 2 little bookkeepers behind it. On failure, add 1 to the counter. Then, if we were half open, that probe just told us the provider is still sick, so reopen immediately. 1 bad probe is enough. We do not need another 5. Otherwise, if the counter has reached the limit, open and stamp the clock. On success, clear the counter and go back to closed. Follow the trace underneath. 4 timeouts, still closed. The 5th one trips it. For the next 30 seconds, every call is refused instantly. Then 1 probe succeeds, and we are back to normal. 9 lines. That is the entire circuit breaker.
Now, the question that actually matters. What do you send the customer while the breaker is open? Because refusing fast is only useful if you refuse into something. Here, the charge goes through the breaker. When the breaker is open, we catch that, we drop the order onto a queue to be charged later, and we answer immediately with pending. The customer sees a confirmed order that says the payment is processing. The worker is free again in about 3 milliseconds. Your checkout page is still up. A breaker with no fallback only turns a slow error into a fast error. The real prize is not the refusal. It is the milliseconds you get back, and having somewhere to put the failure.
So what did that buy you? Everything the customer sees is still there. The checkout page, the order, the confirmation, and the payment, a little bit later. What is gone is a whole class of damage. No worker is parked for 90 seconds on a call that was never going to work. You are not aiming 3 times the traffic at a provider that is already struggling. The failure does not climb back up the stack into whatever calls your checkout. And you find out that the provider recovered within 30 seconds, automatically, because 1 probe call went and checked.
Now the honest part, because this is where the pattern bites its scale. First, the breaker lives inside one process. Run 20 copies of your service, and you have 20 breakers, each learning the same lesson separately. So the provider takes 20 probes every reset window, not 1. Second, that half-open probe is a thundering herd waiting to happen. If 100 processes all open on the same second, they all half-open on the same second too. Add jitter to the reset timeout, so the probes do not arrive together. Third, granularity. 1 breaker per host or per route, not 1 for the whole provider. 1 bad server should not blind you to 9 good ones. And fourth, not everything counts as a failure. A timeout counts, a 500 counts, a 404 does not. That is the provider working perfectly and telling you no.
So the whole thing in one breath. A circuit breaker is a small piece of memory sitting in front of a call you do not control. It counts failures. Past a limit, it stops calling and answers instantly instead. After a while, it lets exactly 1 call through to check. Success closes it. Failure reopens it. It never makes the provider healthy. What it does is make sure that the provider being unhealthy is their outage and not yours.
If that changed how you read a timeout, that is exactly the point. One concept all the way down to the code, every time. Hit like and subscribe.